All right, some media reaction there from the leaked draft on Roe v. Wade from the Supreme Court. Of course, this would essentially overturn Roe v. Wade. Our next guest believes that SCOTUS should overturn it and allow states to ban abortion, which is essentially what it would do. Joining us now to discuss is Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry. Sir, what is your take on what you've seen so far of the Alito document, which, by the way, Chief Justice Roberts is saying it's an authentic document. So what you're reading from that, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I'm glad to see that there is some authentication to it. It puts to bed, you know, whether or not this leak was in fact a leak, which evidently now it is, which is troubling in of itself. I think that does not bode well for the court and the institution. I think that if you take the opinion at face value and you say that that is the opinion that ultimately will be released and those 5 justices hold to that position, I think that at the end of the day, federalism wins. It is something that many of the attorney generals, especially from Republican states, have been clamoring for quite some time. I think that when you look at the problems that America faces, a lot of this is due to an overpowering centralized government, which is not what the Constitution and the founders who wrote it envisioned. And so we get back to federalism, where many of these rights are basically placed inside of the enforcement of the states.
Yeah. And you know, even though the ominous sound of federalism makes it sound like the federal government would have more power. No, federalism is saying the states make up the government, and the states would have the right to write those laws. So final comment on that, and then I wanted to get to the border as a topic. Did you have a final thought, sir?
Yeah, look, I think that it is exciting. We would like to see this court. You know, part of the appointments that were made under the Trump administration were specifically to try to bring the Constitution back into focus and federalism, like you say, enacting states' rights. And of course, look, when you go back to that issue, when you go back to placing more power in the states, which is the way the Constitution was structured, there are good and bad parts to that. But I think that it's the right balance and the right tone that should be struck at this time. Yeah.
Okay, let's do shift gears a little bit. You're leading a coalition of 14 states that are suing the Biden administration over an immigration rule, largely known as the Asylum Rule, and it removes federal immigration judges. This is what you would like to do. Remove federal immigration judges from reviewing asylum claims, and instead it would give some employees from within the Department of Homeland Security authority to grant asylums to migrants outright. Tell us how that would work.
No, actually, you've got it.
Got it backward. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You got it.
I'll tell you what, instead of me reading what was in there, you tell me the way this is supposed to work.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting phenomenon, because first, the Biden administration put in place this executive order that was going to take away the power of immigration judges and place it in the hands of DHS employees. And the whole reason for that executive order was because they said that it would streamline the process and help with the backlogging, right? And at the time, there really was not that big of a backlog. Then the administration comes in and creates the backlog, or creates the potential backlog, by lifting Title 42. And so this was basically Exhibit A for the Biden administration, creating a crisis under which they could then put in place their open border policies. And so what they're saying is, we're going to create the crisis by lifting Title 42, get this huge influx of immigrants coming across the border. And by the way, we're going to bypass the administrative judges that are put in place by Congress and let employees handle these asylum requests. And put in place the Biden administration's open border policy. This is an absolute attempt by the administration to just let these people come into the country and do whatever they want. It is, again, Exhibit A for granting non-citizens more rights than our citizens.
Okay. The critics say that you're bypassing what Congress has written, that you're bypassing what the laws would allow. but this is affecting you directly. Give me your response to that, if you would.
Yeah, well, we're hoping that the judge will settle and quiet those critics. Look, again, what I would tell you is that citizenship is supposed to have privileges. It's supposed to mean something. But under the Biden administration and under the Democrats over the last couple of decades, they respect non-citizens more than citizens. They infer greater rights on non-citizens than citizens. And when you do that, you basically make citizenship nothing. It means nothing to be a citizen. It takes away the privileges of being a citizen.
Right.
What we're hoping is that the judge will write the law, and we'll see what he says in court.
Mr. Landry, I hope you can stand by for a moment because we'll probably want to get your thoughts on this. But Chuck Schumer, I believe, the senator, is speaking, I believe, in Washington. Let's listen in.
Protect a woman's right to choose. Every American is going to see where every senator stands. Which side are they on? Women's health, women's rights, a mainstream America that protects liberty, or on the side of darkness, retrograde history. So the bottom line is this. We are asking the public, I don't think we need to, but we're asking the public to raise their voices. In the next week, let every senator know how you feel. Write, call, email, however you contact them. And continue to raise your voices throughout the year. Our candidates are already talking about this from one end of the country to the other. I cannot tell you the outrage I feel at this decision. And the outrage I feel that Republicans who did it won't own up to it and duck it. It's despicable. We're not talking about anything inconsequential. We're talking about women's health, a women's right to choose, and the millions and millions and millions of American women who have felt the need to have an abortion. Just about every one of us knows someone in that situation. And they want to take it all away. And they won't stop there. This right-wing retrograde court put in by our Republican Senate, many other rights are at risk if they succeed in getting this accomplished. So that's the bottom line here, folks. We have a great contrast between the Republican vision for America and our vision for America. This isn't your grandfather's Republican Party, America. It's Donald Trump's Republican Party. It's a right-wing Republican Party. It's a party where your children will have less rights than you did. So, I still firmly believe in my very bones that the story of American democracy is the story of progress. I believe we will win this fight because the American people are strongly, strongly, strongly on our side. Senator Murray.
Well, thank you. I went to the steps of the Capitol earlier today where I spoke about these alarming reports we are seeing that the Supreme Court plans to end the constitutional right.
Some of the leading Democratic voices there in Washington taking exception to the impending ruling from the court that would overturn Roe v. Wade. And the shock and surprise Chuck Schumer is presenting there, it has to be a little put on. The only difference probably between what is happening right now and when that ruling actually would come out is a month. And we've already seen in the arguments and the backgrounds of these particular justices that this would not be a shock that was the outcome. And he knows that. But this is an effort to stir up some of the Democratic voters, whether that would have an effect in November or not. It would help their fundraising. And so you can't help but think that some of his outrage is a little bit feigned. Let's bring back in Jeff Landry, Attorney General in Louisiana. I don't know if my assessment, if you would agree with that, sir.
No, I do. Look, I think Senator Schumer's actions and his words basically speak volumes as to many of Americans feeling that the document was leaked for this very purpose. It's actually shameful of Senator Schumer to go out and take that and say the things that he said. And look, if you really want to talk about democracy, democracy is letting states decide on how best to govern their people, because it is people who basically govern the states. And when you talk about women's rights and when you talk about the women's movement, here in Louisiana, I can tell you the pro-life movement in Louisiana is probably led 3 or 4 to 1 women to men inside that movement. I go to the rallies, I speak to the groups. My mother was a pro-life activist. So it's kind of hard for me to understand how Senator Schumer says he's dividing the movement by basically saying men are on one side and women are on the other.
Yes, sir.
I think that's the disconnect that he has with the overall American people. And if he really wants to restore democracy, he would support a more federalism approach. And look, if he wants to have abortion in New York, then he can go and advocate for that in the New York legislature.
Right. Okay. Very good. Jeff Landry, Attorney General of Louisiana. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.